Hey everyone, I thought we could sit down today and plan out a bit of a mid-year review together. So a couple of you asked me what I do when I'm in a slump or I'm just having a period of just feeling like I don't know what's going on. I don't really have any routines planned. There is 5 months left of the year and what am I actually doing at the moment? So I thought, why don't we sit down and do a full-on life strategy planning session for the rest of 2023 so that you feel really under control and you get to review all of the kind of routines and systems and habits in your life so that we're kind of in a much better position by the time the end of the year rolls around. Because if you kind of wait until New Year's resolutions, sometimes it's like a really long time away, or you sort of forget the goals that you set initially at the start of the year. So you kind of want to check back in and see how everything's going. So I'm going to kind of run you through my process of what I've been doing to do a little bit of a mid-year reset and just get everything back on track and flowing really well. So as a super organized person, I do use a couple of systems. So I love lists. I've got lists in my notes on my phone. I've got lists on Notion, which is something I've definitely been investing a lot more time in lately. If you don't know what Notion is, I'll link it down for you below. You can definitely have a look. I find it to be quite a cool system to do all of this stuff on. And I also do have just like a vision board and things on Pinterest that I kind of check in with every now and then. But as you can kind of tell, it is a little bit disjointed and a little bit disorganized because that's 3 different things, including just paper lists and other stuff as well. So more than 3 places where I'm sort of keeping all of these notes. And that is why things can definitely get lost and we kind of forget about things, or we have this great idea and it doesn't gain any momentum. So I'm going to break down today into 3 words, and that is my process for how I'll do it. So it's going to be reflect, review, and refocus. And that's how I'm going to break down each little area of my life. So we will reflect on what's been going on. I'll review any of the behaviors or the strategies and things I've been using to approach that. And then I will refocus it for the back end of 2023. Step 1 for me is to revisit and review my goals that I set out for 2023. So for the start of this year, I actually had a massive shift in my life, and that was in the career realm. So I've had a lot of focus on career this year, which means definitely some of the other areas in your life can kind of take a bit of a backseat. So I would say when I was single, a big priority for me was love and relationships and socializing. And now that those are more stable areas of my life, having a partner for the last few years and quite a solid foundation of a group of friends, I felt really safe to be able to kind of pour all my energy into that kind of career bubble. So when I reflect back on my vision board from the start of the year, a lot of the items on there were about financial freedom, about generating income through multiple different streams, and really focusing on how to set up my business, how to win some clients, and just getting all of the momentum behind that kind of stuff going, whether it be marketing, attending events, contacting people, all of those kinds of things that like go into doing a business. So I actually do feel like when I go back and review those goals that I've definitely made progress on them. But then there's other areas, like I said, in terms of relationships and friendships that have kind of just been like dropped. I definitely have found that I am someone who will retreat when I'm really busy. So I don't kind of reach out to people. I won't even text people. I may not be organizing dinners and drinks and catch-ups with friends on a regular basis. And that's not really that great because it can kind of lead you to feeling ultimately really burnt out and super overwhelmed. So you don't kind of have any, I guess, like release from the things that you're really working on. So if you're someone who has a side hustle and you're literally pouring all of your energy into it, I totally get you, because it definitely takes that level of, I guess, commitment to get something off the ground. But definitely don't forget to have those really amazing reset times. So something that's going to be a real goal of mine for the end of the year is to address burnout. So obviously the rigmarole of kind of working every day or long hours, if you've got a corporate job or shift work or any of these kinds of things, I would say literally any job can get exhausting and lead you to burnout, because if you have a ton of housework and other things that you're trying to do, you're also trying to socialize and keep up on life, and then you are also having to be a good partner or a mother or a friend, then it can really just get draining. And I found that when I was in that environment, it was just really unhealthy, because the kind of monotony of doing the same thing every single day just led me to feel like I wasn't kind of inching closer towards my goals, and I was just sort of getting bored of my same routine. So I also want to talk about rotating routines and like mixing things up. So that is also going to be another goal of mine for the end of the year. And something of that has to do with not being so hyper independent, because I know a lot lot of women, we particularly do this. We kind of feel like, I've got it, I can do it all, I don't really need anyone's help. And that can be a massive problem because you're not allowing anyone to step in and actually help you. So I think when you put all of that stuff on your plate and then you don't kind of tell people in your life your needs or your wants or how they might even be able to help, then you start to feel like no one understands and no one's going to be able to do this as good as I can. And you just take on more and more until you get completely burnt out. So I think also learning to accept help is going to be another one. So what I'm kind of doing with these realizations as I like review some of my goals is that I am writing them down on a list, and as a result, I'm kind of turning those into things that I want to really target and work on for the end of 2023. So maybe you had some actionable goals that you have ticked off. So if so, I would say grab out that list or that vision board and do a really thorough review to basically write an action plan of all of the tasks that you did achieve, or what ones were stepping stones, like little smaller tasks that lead up to your bigger goals, and which ones are still yet to be done, and how you can kind of break them down into bite-sized little pieces so that you're able to do a little bit of goal planning and start to manifest those things into reality. Because I'm a real big believer in manifestation. I think it's great to visualize what it is that you want, and that's why I'm so obsessed with vision boards and Pinterest, and even just like a wall planner. I really do love using my wall calendar. I sit there and rewrite it every single month, and I kind of plot out what I'm doing, where I'm going to be, what appointments I have, and then I can kind of start to see days where I might want to have some creative freedom. So on a day like that, I would use it for vlogging or hanging out with you guys. And on another day, I might think, you know what, I'm going to step into my masculine and do some really corporately structured stuff. So I'm going to have back-to-back meetings all day. I'll do phone calls. I'll be sitting at my desk doing some of the architectural work. I might be at a meeting with council. There'll be a lot of that really highly structured stuff. And I totally understand that working for myself now is vastly different to working for someone else, but I do still think that in the hours in between when you're not at work, whether it be your morning routine or your evening routine, you can absolutely choose to kind of flick between those two structures. So you might not want to break it down into the same, I guess, like gender-based roles sounding, but in my eyes, I feel like the feminine energy are all of those beautiful soft routines and rituals. So whether that be getting up and doing maybe like more of a meditation or a yoga workout or Pilates or something instead of crushing it at HIIT class. So I think cycling through those kind of morning routines based off your time of month or just how you're actually feeling is really important, because I'm someone who would definitely slip into the like, I've got to get up every day and do weights and HIIT and all of this stuff. And actually, it was the completely worst thing for me, and I wasn't even hitting my weight loss goals or targets or kind of feeling my fittest and healthiest, because there was probably just so much cortisol in my body that things just were not functioning properly. And nobody wants that, because that's just when you feel like you're hanging on to weight, you're hanging on to water weight, you're probably not eating and taking care of yourself, and you're certainly kind of not inching forwards into those other goals. So I think restructuring routines and cycling them through is something that is really important and definitely going to be on my list. The inner routine girl in me loves step 2 of my mid-year reset, and that is because it is scheduling appointments. So I have been getting on to Jazz for the longest time to do an allergy test, because we've kind of got a theory that he is gluten intolerant, and I really do believe that if he gets tested, that will be true. However, I've been tested for that because I found out, obviously, when I was a child that I was lactose intolerant. So I've known that for my whole life to kind of avoid dairy and those things. And then when I had my bladder condition pop up, I had to avoid the acidic foods. So I've kind of been able to work around my food intolerances from, you know, years and years of readjusting my diet. But for someone who has a really newly found intolerance, I think it's a great idea to go and do an allergy test. It's kind of that one, maybe some of you have done it before. Please, if you have and you're in Melbourne, let me know where you did it, because I'm actually curious to go and do one myself if it's not too expensive. But I do want to get him to book in and organize it. And it's that one where they kind of like, I think they do like 15 pricks on your arm and they kind of test you for all different things. But that is one of those appointments that like weeks and weeks go by, you never book it in, you start to feel really down about not being able to eat something or feeling sick and just constantly going through that cycle, but never taking that step. So scheduling appointments, whether it be hairdresser, it might be the dentist, it could be I don't know, a business meeting or something really important that you've been putting off. A recent one that I was actually thinking about as well is writing a will, because I don't know why, but I just don't have one. And I know a lot of people that don't have one. And I was thinking, not that like, obviously touch wood that nothing would happen, but we never know what path life's going to leave us down. And I didn't even know what my parents' will was, or I don't know, people around me. And it's just because I happened to go to Sydney and my nana was redoing her will, it popped into my mind. And I was thinking, you know, I'm pretty sure you can get those done very affordably. So it's some of those little things that we just never ever do. And they're like on a shelf and not something you kind of think about. So that's the list I'm giving you. Schedule in all those appointments, and you can get a big wall monthly calendar if you want to. I got mine from Officeworks. You can find them pretty much anywhere. I know Kmart, Big W, Target, Officeworks, Bunnings, all of those places have these calendars, and I personally love it because it's an easy way to organize either yourself or your whole family's schedule and be able to pop it up on a wall, use a whiteboard marker, everyone can come along and pop things in there. You could even use a couple of different ones to color code it, and that way you know you've got all of your little bits and pieces in there and everything is kind of locked in and organized so that you don't have to book things last minute. Like even silly things like a nail appointment, I just book them in advance now so that I can get the exact time that I want. I feel really organized and calm about it. I'm not stressing before an event or a birthday or any of those kinds of things. And it just means everything kind of rolls on so much easier when you have all of that stuff planned out. So specifically when it comes to the Christmas time of year as well, people have obviously got organized and booked things months in advance. And I think that's probably a symptom of maybe just being in all of those kind of lockdown conditions for so long that a lot of us sort of got our house back in order. And part of that means now that things get really, really booked out and it's not so spontaneous to be able to like go out for dinner anymore because people really kind of think about it and organize it. So I definitely think schedule in an appointment, whatever it may be. Maybe it's even just a health check or something like that, but go and get it done and make sure you're finishing off the year by getting on top of all those little appointments. The next one for me is huge because this has been the year where I've had the biggest change in my income levels. So I want to set a mid-year budget, and I don't just mean like a random 6-month forecast, although I absolutely am going to do a 6-month forecast just to kind of see what I've got coming in, what's regularly going out. But I actually found a budget template just on Etsy and it was really, really helpful. I think it cost me like $20. I've seen a lot of people rip off and copy the exact same one, so I'm sure you can find one cheaper or somewhere else, but I'll link one down below in case you're interested in finding something similar. And I just think this is so helpful because you're able to kind of edit it to put in all of your little bits and pieces. And I've definitely done versions of this on like apps on my phone and stuff before as well to kind of try and track things, but I've input everything from subscriptions like Netflix, Spotify, Canva, all of those bits and pieces. I also input my phone, my internet, my regular utility bills at home, just like rough estimates of what they normally end up being, my rent and other things that are like fixed numbers that I actually know about, incidentals like petrol and whatever. And then every time I have income, I can kind of link it up. So for me, it's a little bit more complicated because I'm kind of getting income from YouTube, from my business, and also from doing content creation. So I don't really know what's coming in and out each month. And that is a little bit stressful to me, to be honest. So I think once the business is busier and I've got more structured fees and things coming through, then it will make a lot more sense. But in the meantime, sorry, I have an itchy eye today. In the meantime, I'm really just trying to use this template to get on top of things, and sitting down and actually spending some time using this and getting it all sorted has been such a massive help to me because now I've got a massive overall honest picture, which is a little bit difficult when we don't kind of want to face our finances, but truly it's helped me pull back in some areas and make sure that I'm not like over shopping and wasting food at the supermarket. I'm not kind of, I don't know, frivolously spending money on an Uber when I really should be driving somewhere, and just kind of pulling back the whole budget, which I think is a really timely subject because the whole cost of living thing is something we're hearing about so much at the moment on the news. And I think being able to do either a personal budget or a whole family budget is super important so that you can really pull down your bottom line and make sure you're still able to save money if you've got goals and things that you're saving for. So I'm obviously about to go on a trip, so I had to save money for that, and that's actually proven quite difficult because the US dollar is just absolutely insane compared to the Australian dollar. So every single place I'm going just feels so expensive. Like a night in a hotel or a flight somewhere is just like crippling almost, because you sort of look at how much it costs and then you convert it and you're like, no, please. But I'm just trying not to think about that too much, because I did used to travel every single year, and my bank account has suffered slightly lately, but it's just because of things that I've been doing that are worthwhile. Like I drew down a fair bit of money to start the business, and yeah, I think it's just being able to relax into a budget that really works for you, and then actually knowing properly like what's coming in, what's going out, and what you can spend means that you're a little bit more comfortable in terms of purchasing clothes or things like that. But yeah, then you can also just look at other budget strategies as well, like having no spend days or bits and pieces of where you can look to save money as well, like using budget cards. For example, I use the Woolworths Rewards card, and I know most people use these, but I know some people don't. And all you have to do is scan it every time you buy groceries, and every now and then you accrue enough points to get $10. So sometimes what I recommend to people is, instead of just using the $10 every time you see it come up, you could kind of let it stack in your account. And then when it's $100, you could pretty much get a free grocery shop. And that might feel a little bit more relieving than just kind of saving little bits here and there. So there's always stuff like that that you can kind of strategize for and save, especially coming up to Christmas and like the busy period at the end of the year when things can just get really expensive. So if you start now in July, you're bound to be on top of everything by the time we get to that pointy end of the year. Now we've talked about some of the more serious topics, I definitely want to add in a bit of a fun list, and this one is going to be all of those little bits and pieces that you want to do that really bring joy to your life. And I think doing that in the end half of the year is such a relaxing time, because when it's kind of silly summer season, we tend to spend a lot of money, then we hibernate in winter, and it's sort of hard to get out of that funk and get out and about again. So I've actually written a list of places I want to visit. So I had one that Jazz and I actually did the other weekend, which was the Melbourne Museum, and then also this beautiful wine bar called Carlton Wine Room that I've always wanted to go to. I feel like it's so easy to just drive past places and say like, oh, I'd love to stop there, but like no time or whatever. And I want you to make a list of all of those. So I broke it down into places I want to visit, restaurants I want to try, people I want to see, which is also another one I just did. I flew to Sydney and saw my nana, which was really, really beautiful, and I'm so glad that I did it. And there's also classes that you want to do and books that you want to read. There's a lot of good book talk kind of people on TikTok or even booktubers here on YouTube, and they do a thing called TBR, which is like a to be read sort of thing. So a lot of them will have a little jar, which I think is super cute, and they'll pop all of the names of the books you've bought that you haven't read yet in there and draw one out and make it your mission to read that book for the month. So I am actually reading a book at the moment called Limitless by Jim Quick, and I'm really, really enjoying this. So I ended up buying a voucher to do some infrared saunas as a little bit of a health goal, and I had 10 sessions, I think, and I thought, you know what, I wonder how much of this book I can get through in 10 half-an-hour sessions, because that is literally 5 hours of sitting in a sauna. So I'm pretty sure I can actually read a big chunk of that book while I'm just sitting in there not doing anything. So that's been something I've taken with me to every single session, and I actually have another one this evening. So I'm really excited to just get in there and read a little bit more of that, because I've had that book sitting on my bedside table for the longest time, and I just always feel like by the end of the day, I'm way too tired to read before bed. So having another option of a time that you can read, or maybe it's on your commute or something when you would normally be on your phone, I think is a really handy way to set a bit of a goal of some of those, you know, books that you want to read. Or maybe again on your commute, you could be writing one of these lists, like what are all of these restaurants that I've wanted to try, and how can you kind of plan it out and then also pop that into your budget. So a lot of these activities will actually intertwine and be able to be looked at in a more holistic way when you're kind of reviewing your entire life and all of your different little goals. Next one is my absolute favorite way to do a mid-year reset, and that is to declutter your life. So this is in two different streams. The first one is a digital declutter, and the second one is a physical declutter. So for the digital declutter, it'll be much like a physical declutter in the sense of specifically looking at what you love and what you use all the time and what you simply don't need. So whether that be actual tech items, like let's say an old camera that you just absolutely never use anymore, and perhaps you could sell it on Marketplace and make a little bit of money for it, or maybe it's something you haven't used in a while and you think you might want to pick it up and use it again. So you can kind of test it out for a couple of months, and if you don't end up using it, then you can declutter that item. But it could also extend to things like all of your subscriptions. So I did mention a couple of mine before, like Canva, Netflix, whatever, but I got into a really bad habit of subscribing to literally every streaming service under the sun, because if Jazz and I were hunting around for a TV show or a movie, we would just be like, oh, maybe it's on Binge, maybe it's on Amazon, maybe it's on Apple, maybe it's on Netflix. And all of a sudden I had literally 4 or 5 different streaming services all coming out of my bank account. And I think there was even Google Play or something. Like, there was so many, and it actually just got to the point where I realized how much money that was costing me each month to have all of this money coming out, and it was just not worth it. So I definitely think doing a review of all of those little sneaky apps and subscription services and things that you might have signed up for that you probably don't need anymore, and just reviewing all of those amounts and popping them into that spreadsheet so that you can be aware of what's going out of your account and when. And that way you can kind of make an informed decision about if you want to keep those things or not. Now, being a home obsessed YouTuber, you would know that physical decluttering of spaces is one of my favorite things to do. And I think especially around this mid-year time, you'll have a really good idea of how your home is going, how your kind of things are working in your space, and whether you need to start decluttering certain things. So I did a pantry declutter not too long ago, and that is one of the most rewarding spaces I've ever decluttered, because my pantry used to be a complete mess, and ever since then I have kept it so tidy. It is functioning so much better, and I've just never really let it get that messy again, because I bought a whole bunch of jars, I labeled them, and anytime I purchased a new product that required another jar, I just went out and got it and kept the same system that I had going for any new items. So I didn't kind of end up in that whole mess again where there was just packets of things all over the place, or stuff not getting used by its use by date because it was just shoved up the back of the cupboard. So I definitely encourage you to break it down into different areas of your home. I have also done a bit of a bathroom declutter. So I went through all of my skincare and just thought, which products do I actually like and which ones are working for me, and which ones will I just use up and get rid of because I don't want to purchase them again, or maybe I will actually just give them away because they're not working for me. So stuff like that I absolutely love, because I've really been focusing on just getting a skincare routine that will just fill up one shelf. I don't want to have crazy products from a million different brands or things that are really too expensive. Like, I used to be a massive Sunday Riley fan, and now there is only one product I'll buy from them, which is the vitamin C with the turmeric kind of in it, the like orange bottle. And that's just because their stuff is way out of my budget. It is very expensive, and although it's really nice, I've actually got a different range of products that I like to use from a brand called Synergy, and then also some more affordable ones from The Ordinary, and that's just the stuff that works for me. So I don't want to freak my skin out by constantly changing and chopping and changing with products. I just sort of refine down one area of my life and I'm like, cool, that's it. Or if I find a good protein powder, which I finally have now, then I will just stick to that. And I've started using up things in my cupboard that were just taking up so much room, and it is the most cathartic experience, because just like a good wardrobe declutter as well, you just hold on to the things you absolutely love and you clear out anything that's either been worn too many times, you don't really like it, or it's just got something that needs to be fixed. Like, maybe a list needs to be items that need to be tailored, because every time you pull it out of your wardrobe, it just doesn't fit you right, and you think, one day I'll organize this. Well, today is that day. So when you're going through and decluttering each space, I would really recommend thinking about what can go into storage that you want to hang on to, but you're just not using, and it does not need to be in your immediate home space, right? Because there are a lot of items that we just keep pushed away in a drawer, and I guarantee you, if you have not looked at that item in a year, you're not going to miss it if you just pop it into the garage or a storage cage or something like that, because it is taking up valuable real estate in your house. Living in a much more decluttered environment is so good for your mindset, and I guarantee you will find it a lot more calming knowing that there isn't just drawers of things just totally filled up and taking space. I really try and look at even something simple like a utensil drawer. Like, what are the key items that I actually use, and what are some ones that could actually get put away because I only use them every so often. And when I do go hunting for them, I'll know another space that they are, but they're just not taking up that valuable kind of real estate in a drawer that I need to access every single day. That's just going to annoy me if I can't close it or it's too cluttered or something like that. And the same with your wardrobe. I just redid my entire wardrobe system. I used to organize by color, and now I've been organizing by type, and it's really helped me in trying to find outfits, because now I can be like, cool, all of my blazers are there, all of my jumpers are there, all of my long sleeve tops are there. And that helps me so much in just putting things together, because before I sort of had to be like, I don't really know what I want. Maybe I want like a white top, and then I want a this, and everything was just all over the place. The wardrobe bar was bending like this, and it just really wasn't serving me in the way it was organized. So I believe in you. You can absolutely declutter. If you need any specific tips, I have so many different videos on decluttering your different spaces, but systemize what you want to do up front. Sit down and write yourself a little bit of a method of exactly how you're going to do it, and then take the action. Write yourself in your calendar a little bit of a time when you're going to go ahead and do that task, and make sure you have no distractions, or maybe you need distractions, because I do put on a podcast or some music or something when I'm doing some of those tasks, and I really find it helpful. But other times I just want silence. So whatever works for you, but I guarantee you're going to be feeling so good if you just do a massive declutter. And I myself am about to go and do some of that now as well. I've got a couple of spaces left that I want to clean, and I'm really looking forward to it. The next area I've been reviewing and refocusing on are my routines. So I would say I probably have 2 key routines, and it's literally just a morning routine and an evening routine. And like I said, there are variations of, and they interchange, but I don't really have any other like set routines, because I feel like the day kind of just figures itself out in between, especially when you're working and you're quite busy. But I do think that having a little bit of an idea of how your day starts and ends is super important, because it's going to make sure you are hitting some of your goals, whether it be exercise or drinking enough water or those kinds of things. And it also could be at the other end of relaxing, getting enough sleep, making sure you're winding down early enough that you are actually allowing your body to decompress after a big day at work. So I'll pop my routine over here, but my key elements in my morning routine are, I will either always wake up and do a 6:20 or a 7:20 workout class. And if I'm not doing a workout class and I'm working out for myself at home, it will be 7 a.m. always. That is it. I've got 3 alarms set. That is what gets me up. I've got the first one to wake me up, the second one to kind of remind me, and the third one I get out of bed. So that is what works for me as a reformed night owl, because when I switched to being a morning person, I was like, how on earth am I ever going to get up? And truly it is a combination of going to bed early enough and literally just getting out of bed. Because once you're out of bed, I guarantee you, if you've gone to sleep early enough, you'll be full of beans, and you'll be so happy that you actually got out of bed, even in the middle of winter. Because the second I get into that workout class or start working out, I feel so energized, and I feel really happy that I have started my day off in a positive way. So that is absolutely the first thing that I do. The second thing I will do is make my bed and put all of the blinds up. So I know that doesn't really need to be an item on a list, but it is something that I immediately do to let in the natural light. I might even crack open my door a little bit, although Melbourne winter, let me tell you, is something else. So I'm talking like this much, because in summer I'll just open it right up, but in winter a little bit, but just to get some fresh air, because obviously houses aren't like oxygen proof. We're not airtight, but like it is really good to just get some fresh air. I think it really does wake you up, and it kind of gets you connected to the outside environment away from your home. So that is something on my list. I'll also have a shower in the morning now as well. I used to only shower in the evening, but because I work out, I will always shower afterwards. Then I'll do my makeup and hair and just get ready for the day. And at that point, I will have breakfast, or I might fast. So now that I work for myself, I will sometimes fast until 10 or 11 a.m. And I know I've kind of got the luxury of doing that because I'm at home, but when I was working at the office, I definitely didn't do this, because I just kind of needed to be on and had my food and not trying to sort of eating at my desk or something, because I know some workplaces don't like that. So you just kind of have to work around whatever your circumstances are. But having a really nutritious breakfast. So I will often meal prep things the night before to make sure I've got appropriate food there, whether it be hard-boiled eggs, I might be making a smoothie, whatever that is. I do have a bit of a meal plan that I set up, and that ties into that routine. And then I will make sure I'm doing something for me. So whether that is listening to a podcast, doing a little bit of journaling, maybe a 5-minute meditation or something like that. But any of those items that will really calm the nervous system is super important to me. And then I will just pack my bag and head out the door, or I'll be over at my desk doing some work. So those are my morning routine non-negotiables, and my evening routine ones are a little bit softer these days because I really do kind of like to try and calm myself down. So one that I didn't mention in the morning is taking vitamins as well. And one of the vitamins that I will always take every single day now is ashwagandha. And I really do feel like that just completely calms you. It is a very chilled out kind of herbal vitamin. I don't know what exactly it does, but I swear it just gives me that overall feeling of calmness. And lowering my cortisol to me was something super important, because I feel like when I got ultra burned out at my last role, I just wasn't kind of relaxing. I wasn't able to relax. So I just felt quite anxious all the time. And since kind of sticking to that routine and incorporating those vitamins, I don't feel like that anymore. But anyway, my evening routine, I love to light candles and do some low lighting around my house. I find having really bright lights on is just not conducive with the evening kind of relaxing routine at all. So I'll always light a couple of candles, whether they're scented or just nice ones that kind of light up the space. I'll put on a floor lamp or some low lights within my house, and that is kind of how I set up my space for the evening. I then will cook a really beautiful and healthy dinner. I'll have a shower nice and early, so I'm not kind of stimulating myself with that too late. I will make a cup of tea, which I think is really, really nice as well, just to be super warming, and I'll put on my comfiest clothes possible. And that's how I kind of get ready for my evening routine. I also do have a pillow spray, which I'll kind of spray there as well. That's a bit of lavender. And that is something that just really helps me drift off to a good sleep. So if I have time, I will definitely try and read a couple of pages of a book before going to bed. But if not, I'm really, really sticking to putting my phone down much earlier and just not getting hooked into any of those TikTok loops or any of that stuff, because before you know it, it can be midnight when you're watching that stuff sometimes, and then you're just way too wired to fall asleep. Another super important goal of mine, and something that is always going to be a big part of my life, is to focus on my well-being. So when it comes to well-being, this is one of those things that's going to get you out of that slump, and having those sort of non-negotiables in your life that have to do with your well-being are really going to set you up to be in a super positive place. So I would say now is such a great time to set a focus on your well-being. Have a think about what bits and pieces you want to focus on, and maybe things that you've been neglecting, whether it be getting outside for 20 minutes a day, actually having a workout routine and joining a gym, or downloading an app which will have some workouts on it. It might be specifying your wind down routine and how you can really incorporate some time to just relax in your evening, or maybe it's working out a certain amount of times a week, or just some self-care practices like having those routines or writing in a daily journal that are really just going to set you up for success. And I think the more of those sort of little wellness and self-care habits that you can incorporate, maybe it is getting a really great skincare routine, and that could be something that goes on your Christmas wish list, for example. But just all of those things that contribute to your overall feeling of well-being, I think are great to focus on. And I do think that saying about, like, you know, a sick person's wish is just health, you know, like all that we have is our health. And being that I have been unwell the last week, it just reminds me that our health is so important, and being on top of our game is... Being that I have been sick for the last week as well, doing a review of my wellness has been so important to me, whether it be nutrition in terms of stuff that I've been incorporating. So I've actually recently been replacing my second coffee with a matcha, and I love this. I do an iced matcha, so I've got some organic green tea powder, I guess, which is your matcha, and then I will put in some honey, cinnamon, and almond milk with some ice cubes, and I'll mix that all around. And that's just been such a nice thing for me, because now I feel like I'm not having as much caffeine, so I'm not getting as dehydrated. But I think matcha also has a ton of incredible benefits. I'll pop a little thing over here, but I I feel like everyone, if it's to your taste or tolerance or budget or whatever, you should definitely try and incorporate matcha. It is so good for you, and I really do like the taste once it's got the cinnamon and honey mixed into it. So it's not as bad as you think. It doesn't taste like cut grass. As long as you pop those other things in, you can sweeten it up a little bit with some natural sweeteners. Last but not least on my list is to create a mood board. So if you're a visual person like me, this is the most important step and something that will really help you break down all of those previous goals. So whether you make one overall mood board or a separate mood board for each thing, sometimes I kind of break mine up. So I might have one for food, I might have one for fitness goals, I could have some inspirational quotes, and maybe I'll have like some career kind of focus things, or maybe I would just do an overall board. But for the end of 2022, I'm going to show you through my Pinterest board that I created. So this one is specifically for the mid-year reset, and this has really helped me get re-inspired with what I'm actually wanting in my life in terms of love, career, goals, wellness, just food and things. And that kind of really helps me create my vision to manifest for the remainder of 2023. So I love doing mood boarding. I think it is such a fun activity, whether you do it digitally or physically and go and print out your pictures. I've actually done this before at Officeworks, where I will literally just print out all of the images, buy a big piece of cardboard and sit there and glue them all on. And I found this to be such a fun activity. And then I'll just kind of keep the board tucked away somewhere so that I can look at it every now and then. But the thing I love about it most is it just brings so much positivity into your life, whilst also being a really helpful visual tool in creating some firm direction on your goals. So I usually start with a bit of a concept, and that could be a particular word that I want to focus on. Maybe it is like productivity or something, or it could just be enjoyment, or I don't know, something like that. Whatever your key word might be for the year, you could theme it around that. Or it could just be key areas of your life, like family, exercise, self-care, travel, career, that kind of thing. And then I start finding images that suit all of this. So that can really help me pick up projects that might have been put on hold due to current events or just getting way too busy. And it could also just be a really beautiful visual diary of where I'm kind of at. And I do find it really nice to sort of look back on previous year's vision boards and see how far I've come or things that I've actually achieved, because there's just been stuff on there that I thought was so far away. And then once I reflect back on it, I realize I've actually got that, or I am way closer to that goal. And it's just really, really nice to be able to see how far you've actually progressed and being able to track it, but also just to know that you're the one who set up those things. When you made that vision board, you kind of spoke that into existence. And I think that's so exciting, because there's just so many possibilities out there for what we could be or what we can create if you just give yourself the time to think about it and kind of bring it into fruition. So if I had to say my two favorite aspects of doing this whole process, it is probably the budget tracker and just like getting my entire finances in order, because I honestly have never had such a thorough overview of where my money is coming in and going out. And I'm actually thankful that I've finally set this up, because I feel like finances aren't something we really talk about or get taught that much, and you have to really just like do a little bit of a DIY approach. So I know at tax time I kind of just go to an accountant and I keep my records, but they sort of figure that stuff out, and then I never go deep down into that next level of analyzing things. So I'm really happy to have something there moving forwards that is really set up and systemized. And I also have been using Notion, and I just kind of put all my bits and pieces in there. So when I was planning the trip with Jazz, I did an entire plan out in Notion, and then now I've kind of been doing pages and budget trackers and other things that are linked all up to my Notion as well. So you can do business Notions if you're a business person and you kind of want to share it around with people, but you can also do a personal Notion. And when I tell you there are tons of free templates on there, there are tons. So it's a really great website. I've actually just got Jazz onto it recently. And if you're someone who really likes organization and you don't mind it being in a digital format, maybe that's a good app for you, because you can also use it on your phone or your iPad or your computer. So it's pretty versatile, and I think it's a really nice place to keep things. But I hope you guys really enjoyed this video and found it really useful, and you've been able to do some planning and some strategy about how you're going to approach your mid-year reset and get everything in order for the last few months of the year. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.